Welcome to the He Blames It On Me podcast. I am your host, Jamie. He Blames It On Me podcast is my unfiltered story about living in, leaving, and recovering from a relationship that went from amazing to abusive in a single conversation. Part personal story, part survival guide, this podcast is for survivors, those still in it, and those wanting to learn more and understand emotional abuse. This is a chapter from my story. Chapter 6. I know it's not right, but I knew in my gut that it wasn't right. I knew things were happening that I shouldn't tolerate, but I also knew I loved my husband and I wanted to help him. I knew I wasn't to blame for what was going on, but I also felt like I had the power to help him. If I tried hard enough and ensured I did everything right, my husband would get better and we would get back to being the couple I craved. Still, I knew some of the things he expected of me and asked me to do were wrong. As someone who always had such high self-confidence and was also able to balance my individual needs with who we were as a couple, I felt pulled in two different directions. How could I stand up for myself and support his healing journey? How could I give him what he needed without giving up what mattered to me? Almost immediately after his mental health breakdown started, I started to feel that he didn't want me to be around other people. While the word isolation never crossed my mind, I knew that being around my friends would cause problems at home. The self-confident part of me knew how to stand up for myself and resisted when possible. Still, I started to give in small ways because I didn't want to see my husband upset or mad. Incident by incident, I was learning how I would trigger my husband, and I changed my behavior. It all started with the graduation from the leadership program I was a part of. The program was an intense, time-consuming 6-month program. The commitment to this program was a lot, and the graduation was a time for celebration. When my husband asked me what the plans were for the night of graduation, I told him. There would be a graduation dinner and ceremony, followed by a celebration. He implied that we wouldn't be going to the celebration because he wanted to come home and celebrate with me one-on-one with a bottle of champagne. I told him that celebrating together sounded nice, but that the group celebration was part of the graduation activities and that staying was important to me. We could celebrate one-on-one another night. He told me that if we didn't celebrate one-on-one that night, then we wouldn't celebrate one-on-one. I told him that if it wasn't worth celebrating my accomplishments on a different night, one-on-one, then I didn't care to celebrate one-on-one with him. From my perspective, if my accomplishment could only be acknowledged on the night he selected, then he really didn't see it as an accomplishment. He kept acting like I was ruining his celebration plans, even though I felt like he was trying to make my accomplishment all about him. On the drive to the graduation, he dropped a bunch of cards in my lap. He said, "Well, I wanted to give these to you when we celebrated together later tonight, but seeing we're not doing that, you might as well have them now." In that moment, I was torn. Once again, my husband was telling me that because I was choosing to fully enjoy the graduation events, I was ruining how he wanted to celebrate my accomplishments. I was torn because my husband was making me feel like I was selfish for not skipping parts of the graduation because he wanted to do something nice for me. While I was going through all this turmoil in my head, I started to look at what he gave me. There were 5 cards written by people with whom I was in the leadership program, telling me what they valued about me and our friendships that formed throughout the program. They are such nice cards. I highly cherished them. But then my husband told me how and why these cards came to be, and I started to tear up. Not because of what the card said, but because of what he said. First, he told me why these people. The class was 38 people plus me. He had reached out to 6. One didn't have time to respond, but later told me what he would have written. Of the 6 people he reached out to, 1 was female, and the other 5 were male. He said he reached out to these people specifically because they were the names he could remember. The day he reached out to these people, the female had picked me up because we were carpooling to an event. The funny thing was, there were other people in the program I know I talked about more, but they were female. It struck me as funny that aside from the woman who picked me up that morning, he could not remember a single female name, but remembered 5 male names. Then there was his reason for putting this together for me in the first place. He said, "I know you've been having a rough time seeing your value in this program. You're having a rough time seeing the contributions you're making and the relationships you're forming. So I reached out to have these people write something for you so you could see the value you're bringing to this program." I never doubted my value in the program. I never doubted my contributions. Do I think my value and contributions were perfect? Do I feel everyone in the program had an extremely high opinion of me? Absolutely not. But my self-confidence is way too high for me not to really understand my value and my contributions. I never once expressed doubt. I didn't understand where what he was saying was coming from. I kept having this nagging feeling that he didn't do this for me, but he needed to see what these men would say about me. I had this gut feeling that he was trying to figure out if something was going on between one of these guys and me. The next incident was with the baseball game. Shortly after the graduation, the leadership group was given a bunch of tickets to a baseball game. At first, the rule was that due to the limited number of tickets, only people in the program could claim one. No spouses or guests allowed. However, on the day of the game, some people started to announce that they would not be able to make it after all and wanted their ticket to go to someone else rather than go unused. I could tell at home there was tension around me going to this game. My husband was trying to be supportive, but I knew he didn't want me to go. I could sense that he didn't trust me, but I really wanted to go to the game, not just to hang out with the group, because I enjoy going to baseball games. So I thought of a plan. If there were extra tickets and people could bring guests, I would bring someone. My husband couldn't go because we didn't have someone to watch the kids that night. My oldest had practice that night, so that left my youngest, who loves baseball. I thought it was perfect. There was no way my husband could accuse me of cheating on him or doing something I shouldn't have done at the game if I had my 6-year-old daughter with me. The plan was also for him to drop us off and later pick us up when our oldest got out of practice. Perfect. He is in control of when I arrive and when I leave, and I have my child with me, who could serve as a witness to my actions for the night. It didn't work. My husband still accused me of cheating on him that night. When I told him that his accusations were ridiculous, especially because our child was there with me, he said that I could still have done something with her right there. I couldn't believe it. His accusations felt so crazy, but it made me realize that it didn't matter what I did or what actions were put in place to ensure there was no way he could doubt me. He would still find a way to doubt my behavior and call me a liar. Moving forward, I had to seriously consider whether it was worth going to events. I had to decide if the event was worth going to based on the questions I would get when I returned home and how he would treat me. If there were any chance of a male being in that room, I would be accused of cheating. But I wasn't going to stay home. I wasn't going to miss out on everything. So even though I had to start critically evaluating every opportunity, I was still going out of the house when I felt things were worth it. But I had to be ready for when I came home. If I were going to an event, I would have to know why every male who was typically in attendance was not there. Why did I need to know this? Because when I arrived home, my husband would interrogate me. He needed to know every person I spoke with at the event and what was discussed with each of them. If I failed to mention a certain person he assumed would be there, he would accuse me of hiding that I had spoken to that person. Simply saying I didn't talk to someone because they weren't there didn't satisfy my husband. I needed to know exactly why that man was not in the room that night. If I didn't know, I was told that I was hiding things and lying. It was exhausting. so exhausting to have to decide which events were worth attending. It was so exhausting having to be super vigilant about every person I talked to and essentially take notes of who was in the room and who was missing. It was so exhausting to have to learn every reason why someone was not there instead of simply being able to enjoy myself with the people in that room or focus on the purpose of the events I was attending. I knew it wasn't right. I knew that this behavior did not align with a healthy relationship. But I also knew my husband was struggling and that it wasn't normal for him to behave this way. This was so out of the norm for our relationship that I felt torn between standing up for myself and adjusting my behavior to limit my husband's outbursts. I hated it, but I so much believed that if I made a temporary change, things would get better, and soon we'd be back to the couple we always were. I hated it while it was happening. But if changing my behavior was what was needed to rebuild trust, I was going to do it. I was being pulled in two different directions. It wasn't right, but it felt like the right action to take in the moment.